The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So good day, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, B2B Sales, Why E-Commerce is Critical in 2022. I hope that you'll get some interesting thoughts from today's session that you'll be able to use in your businesses and in your decision-making as you go forward through the rest of the year. So I want to start out with some introductions. My name is Bill Dunn. I'm the president of DunnSolutions. Our company, DunnSolutions, is in the business of helping our clients with their digital transformation, specifically around customer experience, and helping them take advantage of digital solutions and ways of having a more personalized and direct interaction with their customer base. And today, I'm joined by Mark Scanlon. And Mark, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the discussion today. I'm Mark Scanlon. I am Consulting Director for McMillan Doolittle. McMillan Doolittle is a consultancy based in Chicago, and we are focused exclusively on the world of retail. So we are known as a boutique agency, and our clients and brands and our clients are brands and retailers, and the technology solution providers who service that industry. We work across B2C and B2B, and we help retailers solve difficult challenges both in-store and online. We're also part of a consortium of 22 global consultancies around the world, and we frequently work with clients based outside the US who would like to do business here, and with US brands who want to expand internationally. And just a quick bit about me. I've worked in B2B sales since the dawn of the fax machine, which clearly makes me really old. I've sold commercial printing, clothing, e-commerce solutions, payments, digital marketing, and then in my current role, consulting services. So I've had a front row to the changes that are occurring in our B2B world right now, and many of them have been profound, and excited to share our point of view today about what's happening with B2B selling.
So Mark, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter, and we'll turn over to your section first.
Sounds good. Okay. Our point of view at McMillan Doolittle is that the way prospects engage with B2B companies has changed, and sadly gone are the days when every business deal and every partnership was made over an expensive dinner or a bottle of wine. I say sadly because I think in a post-pandemic world, a business dinner sounds kind of nice. But instead, as you all know, prospects today turn to search engines for their answers. They read blogs and visit websites to find the information they need to solve their business problems. If your B2B company doesn't have a commerce-enabled website, or if you have one, but you haven't been able to dedicate enough resources to make it truly robust, we feel you're missing out on those opportunities, and you're missing out on the inquiries and the potential to increase exposure for your business and the revenue generation that comes with it. We like to think of the B2B website as your business's digital storefront, the easiest way for you to show your products and services in front of your interested parties. And it's your opportunity to accurately and really concisely explain your USP in a way that highlights the benefits your solutions can provide. So good news, today I have just 6 slides to share about what's happening in the world of B2B selling. And I've kind of created three main takeaways here. First, the shift to e-commerce is on. B2B e-commerce is growing fast. In fact, it's growing 18% year over year, faster than B2C commerce, which is somewhat hard to believe. B2C commerce is growing at a rate of about 14%. Clearly, servicing customers with a commerce-enabled site is more critical now than ever. And if you have a functioning site, a question we would ask is it fully integrated with other business systems? Is it mobile friendly? Further proof of this trend, 93% of buyers today prefer to buy online after making their decision. And we think that that speaks to the comfort levels buyers have with e-commerce and their preference for placing an order independent of a salesperson, even a salesperson who may have helped during that overall information search. In fact, we know that B2B is borrowing some of the best functionality and presentation aspects from B2C commerce. I call this the Amazon effect. Business people, all of us, we understand from shopping online what efficient ordering means, what security looks like, search, reviews from other customers. And so B2B should be no different. Later, Bill will discuss some of those technology considerations with us. But in 2022, your customers want and expect e-commerce. The boomer demographic is beginning to sunset, and millennials are now buyers for B2B services and products. These are digital natives, they're savvy, they've got strong opinions about web access and the types of service that they expect from online. So the expectations have been established. Now, good news, beyond serving as the storefront and the showroom for your best company self, when you have proprietary sales data and customer experience data coming from your website, you have a roadmap for the future in terms of what your customers want, at what price they want to buy, and how they arrived at their buying decision. We think this is mission critical stuff here in 22. I included a couple of screen grabs on the right here from my CNN mobile news feed, and I wanted to include it because it struck me as really interesting. Two wholesale companies were advertising their services in a consumer news feed. And we're not really here to talk about a digital marketing plan per se, and you could argue that maybe these were mistargeted. But I think it's instructive to see how brands are exploring other methods to identify target customers. Again, all of this made possible with e-commerce. So I'll share a little bit more about the shift, and then finally we're going to look at this Nike case study. It's just a short story about a brand we all know who is making an effort to drive more sales to its own website, moving away from wholesale distribution and engaging customers to protect their brand. So to be or not, to B2B or not to B2B, apologies to Shakespeare. For any participants today thinking about turning on e-commerce, let's look at the benefits to the B2B sales process. Really what e-commerce helps do is guide that process. With an initial search inquiry, your customer is on a journey. The question is, will they find your solutions or will they find your competitors? With e-commerce, clearly you can capture revenue from those searches and then provide what we call 24-hour always-on selling. A lot of our prospects do spend time in the evenings and on the weekends researching their work. With e-commerce, you can also reach a wider audience, including potentially international customers if that's of interest, but companies who may not know your own company. Finally, e-commerce enables your customers to buy, to track, and reorder products easily. And that's really what they're looking for, is an improvement in the buying and selling process. Once those functions are in place, you'll begin to see that e-commerce helps align the organization. And knowing what to sell and what to offer, test and learn as we think of it, is really critical. Not only do you understand what they want to buy, you'll actually find out which ones they actually transact. So from a marketing perspective, your website creates visibility for your brand, allows you to spotlight your true expertise, and really ask, how do you tell your story? What content, what use cases are you going to share? What testimonials drive the most views and ultimately the most sales? Again, from an alignment of the organization and a supply chain point of view, your website should allow you to feature special products, things like limited inventory. These are clearly timely topics in 2022 when there has been some disruptions in what's available to sell and purchase. Operationally, you can integrate CRM and ERP with a direct feed from your website. This is really important. Clean data really drives the business. All internal teams are able to access that same sales, service, and product data. In terms of shopper values, we're seeing B2B websites featuring those common B2C tenets of price transparency, immediacy, and convenience for buyers. Most importantly, your website creates a pipeline with the end consumer, and you can do this with data and insights. It's very difficult to accomplish this without e-commerce. So to sum this up, e-commerce is the enabler to strengthen the organization that ultimately supports sales and stronger customer relationships. Well, now let's look at the realities of not having e-commerce on your B2B site. This gets back to purchase experience. Much like the first slide, when you're not present, your absence actually complicates the buyer journey for your customers. Finding your site is important, but allowing the purchases to be made online is critical. Not doing so is extremely frustrating for your buyers. From a competitive point of view, you got to ask, are you matching your competition for marketing, for personalization, and for sales support? If you don't have e-commerce, the question is, how are you presenting your customized pricing, your volume discounts, your loyalty, your contractual prices? Buyers today expect to see their personalized pricing. Again, most critically, you don't want to risk losing existing or new customer sales to your competitor's website. We all know how difficult it is to obtain those customers in the first place. Again, Bill's going to talk about some of the technology associated with this, but beyond these realities, what are some of the high-level internal needs to support e-commerce? First and foremost, you need a dedicated team. Depending on the scale of your operation, this will vary from company to company, but one strategic imperative that is not variable is needing support from senior leadership. They really have to buy into this and approach it with the same fervor that an operator or someone responsible for those sales would do. You need technology expertise, some doers who will actually manage the e-commerce operations after launch. This is not a one and done kind of scenario, as I think many of you know. There is ongoing improvements, ongoing changes, new things that need to be added to sites. We mentioned tying into ERP and CRM, BI systems. Again, having clean data that will drive the business. Finally, you also need a marketing budget that will drive sales to the website. And I think you'll find the right ROI measurements that support your marketing efforts, things like organic versus paid search, paid advertising, websites visits, and then finally conversions. Looking at the right, when you see these internal needs are aligned with strategy, e-com really does address the largest driver of customer loyalty, which is purchase experience. One bad purchase experience can turn away customers. So it's we think critical to have that in place. And again, back to Shakespeare, there really is no question. We all want more sales and faster market penetration. Having e-commerce in place can alleviate a lot of these factors that slow down B2B buying process. You know, the need to clarify price, appropriately showing data and the capabilities. These can all be resolved with e-commerce. So let's turn to a quick case study with Nike. Nike is a brand that McMillan Doolittle has had the pleasure of working with for about 20 years now. And I think as consumers, we all know Nike, but I want to spotlight a not so quiet shift in their distribution strategy that has occurred over the past 5 years. Here's what happened. As more consumers began to shop online, in Nike parlance, their direct-to-consumer channel, they wanted to ensure that they themselves were in control of how their brand was presented, as opposed to leaving it up to other retailers or other wholesale partners. You know, think product detail pages, product descriptions, and even the look and feel of the websites that were selling Nike. So in order to make this shift, what they did is they launched an initiative about 5 years ago, 2017, and they created Nike Live a year later, which was a pretty innovative digital store website. Just this past year, they've entered the metaverse, which is a webinar for another day. But what has been the effect? Well, you can see it here in orange. Nike has more than doubled its sales to consumers over the past 10 years. And in the process, they've reduced their dependence on wholesale partners. Now, if any of you have ever been on the downside of a manufacturer's channel shift, you know it can be daunting. For Nike's wholesale partners, indeed, this has been quite jarring. In fact, Nike today has 50% fewer wholesale partners than they did in 2017. Going forward, they plan to utilize just 40 partners globally. One example I included on here is Foot Locker. In the new arrangement with Nike, Foot Locker is limited to purchasing just 60% of their purchases from Nike, down from 75% in 2020. This is a major marketing and merchandising challenge for Foot Locker. They need to make up lost revenue, and I've heard that they're actually looking at developing their own private label footwear. You can see that Nike also prunes some other wholesale relationships, many long-standing relationships, DSW and Zappos, two pretty well-known large wholesalers for Nike. Well, why are they doing this, and what can we learn? Well, first and foremost, they want to own the consumer sales data. This will inform the future merchandising for Nike. What products did customers look at? How long did they shop? How many visits did they make before buying? What other sites might they have visited? And what do they really want to buy? These are all questions that we should be asking with our own B2B websites. Of course, another stated goal was to increase the bottom line, and Nike is currently doubling the profit over wholesale. It's simple math here. So they've been able to make this shift, improve their bottom line, and attract more of that customer data. Similar to number one, they wanted to tighten the control over the shopper experience, the pricing, and the discounting that would occur if more sales occurred outside of their purview. Finally, they wanted consistent merchandising to customers. So they really wanted to own their brand online. But Nike did not enter into this easily. There were a lot of hard decisions required. It required Nike to consider which products wholesale partners would be selling in the future and at what prices. And then they also had to address, how are our wholesale partners going to access our site, our service, and what kind of data do they need in order to maintain their business? All of those features had to be built out by Nike. So that's really kind of been their head down kind of effort over the last 5 years. But after aligning the channel needs to support their strategy, Nike was in fact able to better service its B2B customers and capture more direct revenue from consumers. So again, just one quick case study, one quick example of how a manufacturer is harnessing e-commerce and restructuring its B2B relationships. Like a lot of changes happening online right now, we can take this case and ask if our own client relationships or client ownership need a review. Mostly, I hope these few slides give you a sense for the benefits and the challenges of supporting e-commerce. As a strategy-focused firm, McMillan Doolittle helps brands think through these difficult digital transformation challenges, and we realize it's not always easy. Bill, why don't I turn it back over to you? You can share some of those examples you were describing about building out a B2B site and some of those case studies that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So let me go ahead and just share my screen here. And I want to start out with a little bit of an introduction before we jump into technology and case studies, because a lot of times people are focused primarily on, I need an e-commerce site. But before you jump into that, it's really taking a step back and understanding your overall customer journey. And every business has a different customer journey that their customers go on. And the idea is we want to understand how you are selling today and servicing your customers, both if you're doing it online or if not, if you're doing it offline, and what kind of interactions your customers have with the sales team, with your website, with marketing materials, et cetera, et cetera. So once we understand what today's customer journey is, it gives us an opportunity to understand where we could apply technology to improve that customer experience over the journey, and also improve revenue and decrease costs. And as we improve the customer experience, we're actually helping our customers with their jobs, which is, they're not in B2B, they're generally not doing this for fun. This is their job, is to acquire your products and services. And we want to help our customers do their jobs by making it easy for them to do business with us. So technology can play a part in all these things, but we like to start out first with that customer journey. So once we understand the customer journey, it's typically broken down into maybe at least 4 major areas. We have the attract part of the customer journey, where you're advertising your services and getting people to understand that you're out there and that potentially identifying a need that they might have. There's an engage part of the journey, where you're going through trying to sell them specific products and helping them do their due diligence on those products. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Conversion, where they actually buy the product. And then post-sale, there's a retain phase where you help them out with any challenges or issues they have with the product, and also hopefully increase loyalty. And if you do your job right, get them back eventually to another engage and conversion, and you have a nice cycle. So when we talk to B2B customers about going online and using technology, they generally are focused primarily on the catalog and the cart, which is what you get in the features and products you need in the engage and convert stage, where the buying process, right? And in the B2B space, you have to be careful that your technology, your commerce platform, it handles things that are specific to B2B. On B2B, you have customer-specific pricing. You generally also sometimes have quoting workflows, where it isn't just the price on the page. You might request a quote, and then you have to get a response back, and there's a back and forth. Well, all of that can be handled electronically with the right platform. Typically, also in B2B, there's different incentives for buying at different levels of quantity. So the system has to handle all sorts of tiered pricing algorithms and maybe even custom discounts that occur in the cart. And finally, there is a lot of integration. So yes, you're taking the order, but you still have to get the order processed. So you have to pass along the order to a back-end ERP or a warehouse system, typically maybe a transportation logistics company. So there's a lot of back-end type of integrations that need to happen. So that's where a lot of the focus starts, because naturally people think about that when they think about selling online. But the truth is that that's just one thing you need to think about. You also have to really have a robust way of sharing information with your customers. And that's typically, it's through the website. So the website, to do that properly, you need a really good website with good content management solution. And especially in the attract phase, a lot of times before people start shopping, they need to learn more about your products. And that's more than just a catalog page. There may be a story there. There may be some sort of explanation as to why they should be even looking at you as a particular vendor. So all of that stuff is handled, SEO, trying to get people to, when they're doing Google searches, to find you. All that's typically handled in the attract phase. And to do that, the other piece of technology you need is a really good web-based content management solution. And finally, when we think about giving the full customer journey experience, typically we think about creating a customer or vendor portal. And that's where you're not doing the buying process. That's handled with the commerce piece. But maybe you're doing either post-sale type activities like a service ticket, or maybe you're looking up some sort of interaction that you might want to have as with helping to use the product, etc. And so there's an opportunity to bring in these vendor portals, which allow you to take more things digital. So I don't recommend you do all of these things in one shot, but I do recommend that you think about them, because in order to really have that customer experience you need all these different platforms, and there's actually a few others as well, like marketing automation, etc. That's a key part of it. So it's important to think of this as a digital transformation sort of journey itself, where you're starting maybe with the core elements, but then expanding it to really digitize a lot of the ways that you interact with your customers. So if you do this properly, you end up creating what I call a virtuous cycle of customer engagement, where customers come to your digital commerce platform, they learn about your products, maybe they just check things out, maybe they purchase, and the output of that is a lot of data. That data, we store that all in a customer data platform, so we understand what the customer is doing. We get a 360 view of that customer. And then we use analytics to determine what is the best way that we should proceed next with that customer. Should a salesperson call? Should we send them an email? Should we keep them on a long-running drip campaign where they get an email every few months? And we can use analytics also to help us with pricing and promotions and those sorts of things. And we pass all of that off to a digital marketing platform, which then does the communications and sends out those emails and texts and such in a regular basis. And if we're doing all of this correctly, what that will do is drive people back to your platform, and then they will execute and they will engage and they will buy more things. And so again, this isn't a one-shot type of thing. It's an ongoing, it's like an ecosystem. And so if you're doing your job properly, all these things do work together. And one of the things that we can do as a system integrator, as a digital consultancy, is we can help you get all these different tools and products to talk to each other. So they're not silos. They should be working together and talking to each other. So when you think about what technologies you need to really do digital engagement, the key ones are listed here on this slide. You need an e-commerce platform, typically a portal of some kind, a marketing automation tool, and then finally, in the center of it all, a customer data platform to collect all the interactions that you have with your customers. By the way, that includes offline interactions too, like people talking to salespeople or getting product samples and going to trade shows. All of those types of things are also what we would do as well as part of that solution. So let's talk about a few case studies where we've helped companies to implement this. This one is a $2 billion wholesale food distributor, and they had about 50 inside sales reps taking orders on phone and also by email, and believe it or not, even by fax. And they did some determination, and they found out that there's sort of that 80-20 rule. And that 80-20 rule is that most of the money that they were getting was coming from their larger customers, but most of the time they were spending was with the smaller customers. And so those smaller customers, they were really important because those were the feeder customers to hopefully become bigger customers in the future, but they didn't want to spend as much human time with those smaller customers. And quite frankly, they weren't really servicing those customers the way that they really felt they could. So they ended up coming to us, and we implemented an online B2B e-commerce platform. And this platform allowed them to offload a lot of those interactions to the platform instead of having a person individually deal with those customers. And in fact, the platform in some ways was more helpful than just calling a rep, because what we ended up doing is on each of the product display pages, we put information about the product that they normally would request. We had it right there on the page. So since they were selling food, there's a lot of safety and ingredient type informational things that are with each ingredient, especially now with gluten-free and all those different nut-free, et cetera. So all that information was all available on the web page so that you didn't have to call in and bother somebody and ask for that information. The other thing that we did here is we enabled negotiated pricing. So a lot of their products, the price changes on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of back and forth negotiation. The problem was when somebody requested a quote and the person they were requesting quote from was on vacation, that quote would sit in somebody's inbox in their email for a few days, a week, 2 weeks. Once we brought this all online, the quotes could go through a workflow where basically if the person that was assigned to the account couldn't handle that quote after a certain amount of period of time, maybe after 6 hours, 8 hours, it would automatically get forwarded onto the next person. So things didn't get lost. Things didn't get lost in email. So the end result is that it was a win-win-win. The company was able to do a better job of servicing their clients. The clients got a better experience, 24/7 ordering, and ability to get information even when nobody was around. And the customer, our client, also was able to reduce their cost of sales for some of these smaller clients. So it was a three-part win. Another case study I want to talk about was really an enablement one. our customer sells parts and replacement pumps and et cetera for the oil and gas industry. And what it turned out is that most of the orders that they were getting for these parts were coming from people out in the field. So somebody's out in the field in the middle of nowhere, oil pump stops working, they go in, they try to identify a part they need, and what they were having to do was having to call into a call center and go through a pretty long process trying to explain what was going on, what part they needed, which product they, and so it would take over about an hour just to place an order for a replacement part. So this really wasn't working for either the customer or for our client. And so we ended up enabling an e-commerce site. It allowed the customers out there in the field to identify the pump and identify the pump number, and then based on the pump that they were using, it would show them all the replacement parts that were available. So we took this process, which was an hour-long process that required talking to somebody, going through a lot of things, and reduced it down to about 15 minutes that you could do on a cell phone, just on a smartphone. And so this changed the whole dynamic and made it a lot easier for people to order the parts and get them and get off the phone, and eliminated this entire long-running online on-phone process and went to an online process. Now their situation was pretty complex. You know, they couldn't just use a traditional e-commerce platform. Everything was very, very custom. So we had to enable configure, price, quote as part of the project. And so online, there was sort of this way it led you through figuring out which product you needed or wanted, and then showed you the options. And this is something that is available. There's actually so much more now available that you could do online. So typically, B2B sellers often think that they're not able to sell online because they weren't able to, they're too complex, the sales too hard, they can't do. But the truth is that today, a lot of these things actually can be online. And I would encourage you to have a conversation with us to see if we can take your process and put it online, because you might be surprised to find out that it actually is possible to do so. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about something that's a little bit interesting also that a lot of times B2B people don't think about, and that is the rise of these micro-influencers. So I'm sure that you know that you've heard of the term influencer, and most people, when they think of influencers, they think of the really famous influencers, you know, the Kim Kardashians of the world and other folks that are, you know, have millions and millions of followers. But in the B2C, it's not really those big boy influencers that are important. It turns out that micro-influencers are more important because they are more focused on your product and service. And I'll give you an example. One of our customers is Client Tools. Client Tools has a lot of videos on their site. They do sell B2B. They don't sell direct. They sell through resellers like Home Depot and Lowe's. But they want to generate traffic and send that traffic to their retailers. So what they wanted to do is leverage a whole variety of Client Tool devotees. There are people out there who love Client Tools. They actually, some of their customers actually have tattoos with Client Tools on their arm. And so Client wants to leverage that. And they reached out to these people to start doing videos. And these people are everyday people, workers who are using Client Tools. They started building videos about how they use Client Tools and how they love Client Tools. And Client actually put together a program for this, and we enabled it through through one of our technology partners, where we take care of onboarding the influencer, making sure the videos get vetted. The videos actually appear on Client's website. So they can appear also, you know, in YouTube and TikTok, but they appear on the website, and the influencers are paid by the number of views. But basically what they're able to do is tap into this large group of people who are very, very ecstatic about Client Tools and love making videos. And so using that community, they created a lot of content. And it's very compelling because it's all about how you use the tool specifically. They go into different wrenches and different, so very B2B. And so a great case study of how you can leverage micro-influencers. The other micro-influencer case study I want to talk about is one of our other customers, Dremel. Dremel has a portal which we helped run for a while, and that portal is for makers. Makers are people who use Dremel tools to build things, and the whole idea there is to create a community of people that use these tools, and then have those people show off what they're building with their tools. So people will go on there and they'll post projects, what they've done, and then they talk about what Dremel tools were used to make the projects. So what we're seeing here is, the attract and sort of the post-sale phase of sales. They're not actually selling anything, but they are, again, leveraging influencers and users and influencer communities and videos and projects to create a community around their particular product. And again, Dremel does some direct sales, but they also typically go through retailers. But here what they're doing is just creating that community, and they're creating another reason for people to buy their product. So the nice thing about that is they do get a lot of direct customer interaction, and they capture a lot of customer information that they can then use to try out new products, get feedback, send surveys, and of course, just do general marketing. So I just wanted to point out that there's the normal stuff that you think about, taking an order on an e-commerce site, but there's also the more interesting things you can do from a marketing and sales perspective that's also part of the story about going digital. So that's the end of our formal presentation. I wanted to open it up to see if anybody had any questions, and I've asked Beth, who is our marketing manager, to just shout out. Is there any questions from anybody in the audience? If you do have a question, please put it into the chat, and Mark and I will take a few minutes and answer those questions.
Hi, so I did have a question in chat. This is Beth. It is, we already have a website. It does pretty well, but it's not great for mobile, and there's no real personalization. What would you suggest prioritizing one feature over another with mobile and personalization?
Well, let me take that first, then I'll see if I'll ask Mark if he wants to also add some comments. So between the two things, in my mind, there's a number one priority, and that is mobile. It turns out that even in B2B, mobile is a huge percentage of ordering. And I was actually surprised to find out how much mobile was. We talked to some buyers on the buy side, and the first question I get from buyers is, can I order on my phone? So I would say the first thing to do is get that site mobile enabled, making it either the quickest way to do that is making mobile responsive, which means that the site changes depending on whether you view it on a web browser on a desktop or on a mobile. If you want to go really further, you can create a custom mobile app. That's a little more work, but I think you may not need to go all the way over there. I think the easiest thing is to redo that front end of that website and make it mobile responsive. All of the websites that we build, all the e-commerce sites that we build, even the portals, are mobile responsive out of the box. And then secondarily, I think you can start with a better job of marketing and personalization. So I don't, Mark, if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I was just going to echo. I think mobile is key, and it's really a question of how easy or difficult it would be to, say, offer individual pricing on the website. Sometimes an existing system needs so much adjustment to make that possible that can be a pretty steep hill. Not to say it shouldn't be considered, because personalization of pricing is really critical. The other thing I would say is, have you asked your customer what's really important? And if personalization is key, then that's kind of the marching order.
Yeah, I think personalization is technically, with the right platform, pretty straightforward to do. It's the work there is not really the technical part of the work. The work there on the personalization is really more around the marketing people and kind of getting that part. There's a lot of content and a lot of things you need to do with personalization that you don't need to do if you don't have it. But putting it in place is I think critically important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have one more question in the chat. Someone said, I'm responsible for brand marketing. Our brand is well known with our customers, but we don't have a team to do a full-scale review of our competitors and what they're doing. What's the first step you would suggest in analyzing our competitors?
Yeah, I can start with this, Bill, and I'm sure you can add to it. We get this question a lot, and it can be difficult to do yourself when you're putting out other marketing fires. And we realize that there are a lot of marketing related tasks that have to be done all the time without looking forward into the future and asking, what are our competitors doing? What do we need to do differently? And so I think this gets back to just a good overall business development and marketing strategy, asking, what can you do to grow business with your existing customers versus new customers? And sometimes knowing that will help align some priorities. How much new business are you focusing or forecasting, and are you measuring traffic and site activity to understand that? It's from a strategic standpoint at McMillan Doolittle, there are a lot of steps that go into building out a prioritization plan that you can do on your own. It is helpful to have a partner, but if you can begin to look at results from your competitors and understanding your own traffic flow, I think you'll start to get a sense for what your customers really want.
I would say from my perspective, you can learn a lot about your competitors by looking at the sites and the way that they're providing services to their customers. A lot of times, I think, though, you might not be able to see the full internal site without having one of your customers really walk you through that.
Yeah.
So I think that it's if you have that relationship with your customer where they'll allow you to see what your competitors are doing, that would be amazing. If not, you just have to do as much research as you can.
Okay, that was all the questions I had in the chat.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, that's the end of our session today. I appreciate you staying with us, and I hope that you got some value out of today's discussion. And if you would like, we have a couple follow-ups. If you are interested in contacting DunnSolutions, feel free to email us as info@DunnSolutions.com, and we can help you with your e-commerce initiative or your digital transformation initiative. We also have a white paper available if you'd like to come to download it, and it's specifically oriented towards B2B and e-commerce. So feel free to go to that page and download that white paper. And again, appreciate everybody's time today, and we'll talk to everybody again soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.